It seems like the understatement of the year to say there is a great moral issue around the complex decision on assisted dying, or sometimes referred to as euthanasia. I'm not sure what the accurate term is, or what is the most compassionate term. Just as there was a serious moral decision many years ago on the abortion debate, this equally sees the same moral difficulties applied. I'm deeply concerned when there are complex human decisions that they're described as either politically left or politically right. Sometimes by certain people, there are attempts to present these issues in an ideological way, or positioning one as reactionary and one as progressive, because they are not that. The end-of-life debate throws all those perceptions up into the air. And when you look at the breakdown of the vote in the House of Commons last week, the debate took no such positions singly on any particular party, as the debate zigzagged across Parliament, with people from political opposites taking a similar stance one way or the other. Dame Esther Ransom, one of the most high-profile campaigners for assisted dying, expressed her delight with the outcome. And interestingly, the former Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, stated that he was opposed to the passing of the bill. Wes Streeting, Minister for Health, my understanding is he voted against, and there was some speculation it might have been from a Christian perspective, although there are many Christian perspectives on all issues, including this issue. There are all the practicalities which are driven by economics. And I say that in that cold way, that somebody's death or passing might solve a lot of problems. And there are those who fear that this might be the case, but that possibly is on the extreme end of the debate, which is never a good way to debate any particular issue, in my opinion. This was a private member's bill introduced by Kim Leadbeater, MP, sister of the murdered MP Joe Cox. And the final vote was 330 in favour, 275 against, which was a majority in favour of 55. I didn't get to see much of the debate because I was in London and travelling around down to Oxford to meet people in our college in Oxford and other things. Although it would have been hard to see all of the debate because the debate lasted 5 hours, and with numerous very touching personal stories. I picked up on some of them from both sides. Those against the bill called for better end-of-life care. And there will be still many, many months of debate before we arrive at a piece of legislation. And when the bill were passed, there were tears of joy and tears of sadness and disappointment. There were emotional declarations such as the following: a regime that would allow intentional killing or assistance in killing, however kind or compassionate the motive, breaches the fundamental principles of the sanctity of life. And yet, recognizing the right to end the life of a terminally ill patient, or more correctly, to assist when that person is going through severe pain and suffering, to end or help end that person's life, can be considered compassion in itself. There is the argument that medical science advances at such a rate that it's possible for a specific cure to be found that may free someone from pain and maybe even prolong their life in a more bearable way. But I would imagine to somebody that is suffering and no longer wants to be here, that debate is somewhat academic. I may be wrong. Throughout the debate and campaigning, we heard the following: the sanctity of life, those against. And that may not sit comfortable with the sufferer. The dignity in dying, those in favor. But at times we've all seen incredible dignity in the faces and eyes of those who are suffering pain. And even when we sat with them during the final moments of their lives, there was incredible dignity. People agree on one thing, both sides agree on one thing. The decision to allow doctors to help bring about the death, even indirectly, of a human being crosses a major moral threshold. And yet, the vote clearly showed that most in the House of Commons understood that and wished to bring into legislation somebody's right, if the suffering is intense, to bring an end to their life. Now, I don't fully understand the complexity of the bill, and I've only picked up on a couple of aspects of the bill. That it must be the last 6 months of the person's life, or you can only have 6 months to live. But those sort of things are incredibly negotiable, and they're not fundamental, and sometimes they're difficult to legislate around such an issue. What does that exactly mean? Greater minds than mine, no doubt, know what the solution to that is. And as I said earlier on, respecting Wes Streeting's decision, but there isn't a single faith-based response to this issue. And I don't think anyone should claim that. It's always a problem on big moral issues when one faith-based religion comes out and says, this is the core value of our religion, that they are not speaking for everybody. We see in Psalm 121, as I read earlier on, the lines, "The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and your going, both now and forevermore." And some people will interpret that to mean that only the Lord decides your coming and only the Lord decides your going, and there should be no other intervention. But that is the absolute position. And in our lives, we lead complex lives. Principle over practice and practice over principle. We contradict ourselves all the time when we think we believe in something in principle and yet we agree with it in practice. Or we agree in the practice of something or against it in practice, but yet agree with it in principle. So they are, all these decisions are incredibly complex. So in many ways, there is no simple Christian response. Because like all sacred texts, they are open to interpretation in multiple ways. I think for us, and for all of us, we must hope and pray that wisdom and decisions are always contextualized in human decency and human suffering and compassion. And in my opinion, to be fair to all our members of Parliament, that seemed to be the tenor of the debate. Amen.